in the world of sports, we're sort of obsessed with longevity. We worship the athletes who just defy time.
The ones who stick around forever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The ones who compile these huge mountains of stats over, like, 2 decades. We tend to equate greatness with durability.
It's the standard metric, right? We look for the dynasty, the long reign.
But every once in a while, you get a phenomenon that burns so hot and so bright that physics basically says, nope, you can't keep doing that. It's the supernova versus the sun.
And today we are definitely looking at a supernova.
We are diving into a career that was essentially a flashbang grenade. We're talking about the Japanese thoroughbred, Aston Machan.
That is a perfect way to frame it. She really defined fleeting brilliance.
Now, if you're a casual fan, you might look at the history books, you see a short career, and you think, okay, decent horse. But if you know, you know. Today, we're making the case that she might just be the most pure speedster of her generation, and her story is this mix of, high-octane triumph and just sudden gut-wrenching tragedy.
And it's a story that absolutely requires context, because you can't understand Aston Martian in a vacuum. She was born in 2004.
Which puts her smack in the middle of the golden generation.
Precisely. She was classmates with two of the most famous mares in Japanese racing history, Vodka and Daiwa Scarlet.
The Titans.
They became the Titans. They had the long theatrical rivalry. They have the statues. They're on the posters. They were the main characters of the era.
But Aston Marchan was the third queen. And usually being third best is kind of a backhanded compliment. But here it feels different.
It is different. She wasn't a sidekick. She was more like the specialist.
The specialist is the right word.
Yeah. While Vodka and Daiwa Scarlet were off conquering the classic middle distances, Aston Marchan was carving out a totally different identity. She just refused to play their game because she was too busy playing her own, and it was a much, much faster game.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the life of this sprint queen. We've got the pedigree analysis, the race charts from 06 to 08, and the medical reports that explain why it all ended so abruptly. But I want to start with the name, Aston Marchan. It's a weird name.
It is, and it's this fascinating bit of etymology that actually tells you everything you need to know about her. It's a portmanteau.
Okay, break it down for us.
So the first half, Aston, is a direct nod to Aston Martin.
The car.
James Bond.
Yep, the British luxury car. It screams performance, sleek lines, high horsepower. You don't name a horse Aston if you expect it to pull a plow.
Right, it's a machine built for speed.
Exactly. But then you get the second half, Marchan. This was actually a nickname the owner had back in his student days. It's this diminutive, cute, friendly kind of...
It's basically a high-performance body. In a way, yeah. And that duality, the machine versus the mascot, that actually defined her. The sources really emphasize this. On the track, a weapon. But in the paddock, she had these very cute, almost idol-like facial features. She wasn't a big hulking monster. She was compact.
Okay, let's drill down on that, because compact means something specific in racing. How did she move? Because when I watch the replays, she doesn't look like Vodka. Vodka glides. Aston Marchan looks like she's working.
And that is the first key technical insight for you. If you watch a horse like Deep Impact or Vodka, they have these massive sweeping strides that eat up the ground.
Right.
Aston Marchan was the opposite. She was a pitch runner.
A pitch runner, meaning like a high turnover.
Exactly. Think of a drum roll versus a slow beat. Her legs were just a blur, a short striding, high-tempo rhythm. And honestly, it's an exhausting way to run, but it generates explosive acceleration.
It's like driving a car in a lower gear at super high RPMs.
Perfect analogy. You get instant power, but you burn fuel incredibly fast.
Which would create a natural limit on how far she could go, I'd assume.
Physics dictates it, yeah. You can't sprint a marathon. And that brings us to her pedigree. Her sire was Admire Cuisine.
Okay, now, I looked him up. His career path was weird.
Weird is putting it mildly. He was a comeback king. A champion 2-year-old, then he shattered a bone. He disappeared from the track for 3.5 years.
3.5 years. In horse racing, that's a retirement party, not a hiatus.
Oh, absolutely. Most horses would have been retired. But he came back at age 6 and won the Yasuda Kinnin, a grade 1-mile race. His whole legacy was patience, resilience, longevity.
The old warrior.
And here's the irony. Aston Machan is from his very first crop of foals, but she did not inherit the wait 3 years gene.
She was the inverse of her father.
Completely. No patience. Just raw talent, deployed immediately. She debuted in July 2006, finished second, won her maiden. Standard stuff. But the deep dive moment, the moment the data just jumped off the page, was the Kokura Nisai Stakes.
Her third race. First graded stakes win.
She won it easily, took the lead, just cruised, but that was just a warm-up for November, the Fantasy Stakes.
Okay, I was looking at the splits for this. This is where things stop making any sense for a 2-year-old.
It's an outlier performance. I mean, first she won by 5 lengths. That's a blowout in a sprint. But then you look at the clock. She ran 1,400 meters in 1.21.3.
Okay, put that in context for us. Is that good or is that great?
It's historic. That time broke the JRA record for 2-year-olds. And not by a little. She shaved 0.5 seconds off the record.
Half a second.
In a sprint, half a second is about 3 lengths. She didn't just break the record, she took a sledgehammer to it. And that's the moment she goes from good horse to something terrifying.
So she enters the Hanshin Juvenile Fillies, the championship for 2-year-old fillies, as the queen. She's the 1.6 favorite. The hype train is at full speed.
But this is where the plot thickens, because standing in the gate next to her is Vodka.
The future legend. But at this point, she's just a challenger, right?
Correct. Not a legend yet. Just a very talented horse with a very different style. And the race was a perfect clash of philosophies. Aston Machan did everything right, used that high-tempo stride, got to the front, controlled the pace. She looked home free until the last 50 meters.
And then the Vodka engine kicks in.
Vodka has that massive stride we talked about. She unleashed this devastating late kick, ran Aston Machan down, and won by a neck.
Ugh, that has to be demoralizing. To break her record, run a perfect race, and still lose, it feels like she hit a ceiling.
It was a loss, technically. But if you're a real handicapper, you look at who finished third. Aston Machan was a neck behind Vodka, but she was 3.5 lengths ahead of the rest of the field.
So it was a match race. It was them and then a separate race for everyone else.
Precisely. It confirmed she was elite. She belonged at the absolute top. She just happened to run into a freak of nature.
Okay, so 2006 ends. We have a rivalry. 2007 begins. The fans are salivating. We've got the big three forming Aston Machan, Vodka, and Daiwa Scarlet. They all meet in the Uka Show.
The Oka Show, the Japanese 1,000 guineas, a classic. It's 1,600 meters, the mile. This is the race every owner wants to win.
And she flops. 7th place. The sources say she just fell apart.
A total disaster.
Why? She ran 1,400 meters in record time. Why does another 200 meters just kill her chances? Is it just physical?
It wasn't just the distance, it was temperament. The notes describe her in the paddock as irakomi. That's the Japanese term for getting worked up. Sweating, jigging. She was burning all her energy before the race even started.
She beat herself.
And then during the race, she was pulling, fighting the jockey, trying to go faster. When you do that, you aren't breathing right. You're anaerobic. By the time they hit the final stretch, her tank was empty. Vodka and Daiwa Scarlet just blew right past her.
This feels like a crossroads. A lot of sports stories, this is where the coach says, we need to train harder, teach her to relax so she can win the classics.
Because that's where the prestige is. That's the conventional wisdom. You try to mold the horse to fit the race.
Right.
But Aston Marchan's team did something incredibly brave. They looked at that race and said, we aren't going to fix her. We are going to accept her.
They leaned into the skid.
Totally. They realized she wasn't a miler. She wasn't a classic horse like her rivals. She was a sprinter, pure and simple. So they made the hard call. Drop out of the rivalry. Forget the Oaks. We are going to the sprint division.
That's a huge ego check, isn't it? Admitting we can't beat them at their game, so we're taking our ball and going to a different court.
It is, but it's also strategic genius. Why be a mediocre miler when you can be a historic sprinter? And that decision led directly to the Sprinter Stakes in autumn 2007.
Okay, set the scene. Nakayama Racecourse. What were the conditions?
Terrible, rain soaked, soft track. And usually speed horses hate that. Their feet sink in, they can't get that quick traction.
Plus, she's a 3-year-old filly running against older, stronger males. That's a physical mismatch.
Historically, yes. But the gates open, and Aston Marchan just didn't care. She rocketed out. And this is where that high-tempo stride actually helped her. She wasn't gliding and slipping, she was digging in.
She went wire to wire.
Led the whole way. And in that final furlong, when the older horses were closing in, she just found more. She refused to let them pass. She won the Sprinter Stakes,
becoming only the second 3-year-old filly in history to do it.
It was the coronation. It vindicated everything. She proved she was the fastest horse in Japan over 1,200 meters. She found her throne. She wasn't the third queen anymore. She was the queen of sprints.
And the next logical step is world domination. The plan was Hong Kong, right?
The Hong Kong Sprint in December. Richest turf sprint in the world. It was meant to be her introduction to the global stage.
But this is where the story shifts from sports triumph to the tragedy we mentioned. And it starts with something completely out of her control.
Equine influenza.
The flu, basically.
Yes, but for the racing industry, it's a shutdown event. There was an outbreak in Japan, and because of quarantine protocols, international travel became impossible. They had to scrap the Hong Kong trip.
That's a massive bummer, but she's young. Only 3 turning 4. You figure, okay, bad luck, there's always next year.
That was the mindset. She rested up for her 4-year-old campaign in 2008, ran a prep race in February, the Silk Road Stakes, and finished 10th.
10th is bad. Was that a warning sign?
At the time, they just thought it was rust. Heavyweight handicap, hadn't run in months. They weren't panicked. They were aiming for the big one in March, the Takamatsu no Miya Kinnan. They thought she'd bounce back.
But she never made it to the gate.
No. In March, right before the race, she fell ill. The diagnosis was X colitis.
I have never heard of that. The X stands for what?
It essentially stands for unknown cause or severe. It's an acute inflammation of the colon. But, the clinical description doesn't capture the horror of it. It involves massive fluid loss, internal hemorrhaging, toxic shock. It hits incredibly fast.
So you have this elite athlete, this machine, and suddenly she's just fighting for her life.
It blindsided everyone. The decline was so rapid. Despite intensive veterinary care, everything they could throw at it, her body just shut down. She passed away on April 21st, 2008.
That's barely a month after the diagnosis.
She was 4 years old.
It's just jarring. We started this talking about vodka and Daiwa Scarlet. They raced until they were 5 or 6. They have these huge multi-volume biographies. Aston Machan feels like a short story, a really intense one.
But a powerful one. And this brings us back to that shooting star idea. If she had lived, what would have happened?
The great what if.
The consensus is that she would have ushered in a golden era for sprint fillies. She'd already beaten the boys at 3. She likely would have dominated that division for another 2 years. We just missed seeing how fast she could really go.
It's interesting how tragedy shapes a legacy. Because she died so young, we never saw her get slow. We never saw her lose her edge as an older horse. She's frozen in amber as this perfect, unbeatable speed machine.
That's true. Her death, in a way, solidified her idol status. She never aged out. She just remains this youthful, explosive figure in the memory of the sport.
You mentioned her running style was inefficient. Do you think there's a connection? Did she burn the candle at both ends?
Medically, no. Colitis is an infection or an immune response. It's not caused by running fast. But, metaphorically, it's hard not to draw that line. She lived fast, she ran fast, and she left fast. It fits the narrative almost too perfectly.
It really challenges how we define value in this sport. We spend so much time looking for the next Derby winner, the horse that can run 2,400 meters. Sprinters can feel like second-class citizens. But she proved that pure speed is just as captivating.
Speed is primal. Watching a horse win a 2-mile race is a strategic chess match. It's intellectual. Watching Aston Machan win a sprint was like watching a drag race. It's visceral. It's just adrenaline.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more.